Their produce is way better, especially. How are you? I am living the dream, girl. Me too. Or night, it depends on the day.
You ready?
It's 59, but by the time you
Right.
get home.
Welcome, everybody, to the March 20th, 2023 Finance Committee meeting. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If you are here to make public comment, please approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Also, if you could please make sure that your cell phones are either on mute or vibrate. And one other thing, we're expecting obviously a lot of discussion on item 19J, which is the lease agreement between the city and Meals on Wheels. We have arranged for extra seating down in chambers. And before I get to that item, I will call a short recess to allow folks who are in council chambers waiting to speak on that item to transition down here. If you are here to speak, that's where the seating is, or you can, of course, stay where you are. Just wanting to make that clarification.
Jeff, can I have a break? Or TJ, can you do me a favor? I'm sorry, I forgot to turn on one thing in chambers.
Right.
So the door is open, the little tab that's up on the right, because it's battery operated. It's a little battery pack, it's sitting up on like an electric box. Can you just? Sorry, Jeff.
That's okay, Jen.
You just let me know.
Oh, great. So please work with us. Again, we are expecting a lot of discussion on that particular item. And we will also be making a motion to suspend the rules in order to hear that particular item last, so that we can get all the other business and folks can get back to work. So with that, Jen, would you please read first item?
Would you like me to read the first name, or would you like to suspend the rules?
We'll take the motion to suspend the rules. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, due to the anticipated controversy on the agenda item 19J that will likely generate lengthy debate, I would ask that the committee to consider handling the other agenda items first. So, Mr. Chairman, I move to suspend the rules to hear 19J last on the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. The motion is non-debatable and non-amendable and requires 2/3 vote. With that, I will ask for a vote on the motion to suspend the rules. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, the motion to suspend the rules has been passed, and item 19J will be heard last on the agenda. And now we'll go ahead and read the first item on the agenda.
Item number 16, resolution authorizing the city treasurer to discharge uncollectible debts pursuant to Wyoming State Statute 16-4-502.
Staff report, please.
Good afternoon, Renee Smith, Finance Manager. Before you is a resolution to discharge uncollectible debts from the City of Cheyenne's Housing Loans Fund. It was put in place for programs that the city's Housing and Community Development Office managed over the last few decades. A more detailed explanation of these programs and a justification for this resolution was provided to you. 8 mortgages have remained on the city's books, some going as far back as the 1980s and 90s. And upon review, we have determined these repayable loan debts will not be recovered due to the death of the homeowner, foreclosure, or an inability or unwillingness to pay. The cost to continue the attempts to recover these funds far exceeds the amount of any funds we could recover. Staff is requesting approval from the governing body to discharge the City of Cheyenne Housing Loan Fund's uncollectible debts in the amount of $67,129.52. Robin Lockman, the city treasurer, Deanne Whiteout, the program manager, and I are here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Renee. Staff or questions from the committee for either Renee or Robin?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Aldrich?
Chairman White, through you, when I was looking through this list, there is an individual listed that still owes $27,448.39. And it shows that her, according to the records, her property was foreclosed on in 2010, but she remains on the premise. I'm just wondering what, I have actually that question on several of these that, and I don't know if you want the number items, but number one is a similar situation. This particular individual is number 6 on this list that we were given. Number 8 is filed for bankruptcy, but my understanding is mortgages are not dischargeable.
Correct.
And so I'm just wondering what have been our efforts, and have we used the city attorney's office or a private attorney to try and put liens against these individuals, or if they're in foreclosure, to let our liens be known with, for instance, the bankruptcy court? What has been the process?
I had the same question, so. Deanne,
Mr. Chair, we use the
press that, but there you go.
Deanne Woodhouse, City of Cheyenne Housing Community Development Office. The first one that you mentioned, I believe that was Lisa. We have worked with her and her husband for many years. When I went to the county clerk's office and I researched what was on their books, I noticed that there was a foreclosure. I know that this one has gone through foreclosure like 4 or 5 times. Each time it went through foreclosure, the documents went to the city attorney's office for their review. And I did notice that there was a foreclosure, but it also showed after that foreclosure that her husband quitclaim deeded over to her. So she is still, I don't understand that. You'd have to talk to the county clerk's office for that one. I know that there was a question one time of whether or not the husband was actually living there. The police were involved in that one. The current director at the time contacted the police, and the police researched it and found out that he actually did live in the same house, that they were lying to us by saying that he was not there. I don't know how many letters have gone back and forth. The city already has a lien against these properties, so therefore we really cannot put a second lien, to my knowledge. The city attorney's office informed me at one time that if we wanted to foreclose on the properties, we would have to hire a foreclosure lawyer, because the city attorney's office did not do that. That was many years ago. So we have attempted via letters, personal contacts to take care of these issues. And unfortunately, we have been either ignored or brushed off.
Thank you. Follow-up question.
Go ahead, Dr.
I'm
Aldrich.
just wondering if the current city attorney's office has had an opportunity to look at these and to make an assessment of whether it would be something that we could pursue or not.
Stephanie, do you have any information on this?
Stephanie Boster, Cheyenne City Attorney. I have not looked at this list. I will say, historically, it has not been effective for us to lien properties. We're generally not having any success in that. The question is going to be, is the juice worth the squeeze? Because a lot of these folks, they don't have assets. I mean, they've got their home, but I'd certainly be happy to look into this.
I would like to make an amendment, Chairman White.
We
have a motion first.
Yeah. Good. Go ahead and make the motion for an amendment.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, Robin, did you have some extra information?
Robin Lockman, City Treasurer. And just remember that if we write them off our books, if legally we still have a claim to those, we will work towards that. But according to gap accounting. We have, these are so old, they shouldn't have been on our books for many, many years. So.
Okay, thank you. So I would move to adopt. I would move to amend.
There's been,
Hear what I want to say.
there's been a, yeah, there's been a motion to amend. What's the amendment?
The motion would be to amend this resolution to discharge number 3, number 5, and number 7, which are all due to death. Or actually, I think those all 3 are deceased,
Mhm.
and that totals $8,241.77, with the remaining 5 being reviewed by the city attorney before they're written off.
Did you get all that, Jen?
So just discharge number 3, 5, and 7, correct? And the
Correct.
rest, okay. Yeah. So we have Dr. Aldridge as making the motion, and Scott, are you still second?
I'll still second.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded to amend this resolution. Is there any discussion from the public on this? Robin, did you want to offer something?
Mr. Chairman, city policy is if there's anything 4 years and older, as well as death, that we write them off our books.
Right, and can I respond?
Go ahead, Dr. Aldridge.
Chairman White, through you. I'm not opposed to that, but I'd like to see what we can do first, and then we can dispose of those in a second resolution.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Roybal.
through you to the city attorney. So what I just thought I heard was that even though those are written off, as long as we still feel we have, they still owe us, we can pursue them.
Go ahead.
Chairman, through you to Councilman Roybal, Stephanie Foster, City Attorney. Yes, if we write them all off, I can still pursue them. That doesn't change anything I do.
Mr. Aldridge.
Chairman White, through you, my concern is that having worked in collections many years ago, I understand that once they're written off, there's just not been motivation to pursue them. And so until we can have you take a look at those other 5, I'd rather just do the 3.
Ms. Foster.
Mr. Chairman, through you, my only concern is that city policy requires write-off. So we're kind of.
That's
We're changing
It's
policy.
been 23 years. That's
Right.
another 2 weeks.
Renee, did you have something to offer before we can finally move on, perhaps?
Just a little bit real quick. Some of these also, they are well below the income level at this stage, that they don't even meet HUD requirements to go after them for repayment. So that's why we presented this to you, because this was a list that they really don't qualify for repayment at this point. And again, the cost to try to recoup the funds does not equate to the time served that we're spending to do it. Happy to do it. I will resubmit an explanation of which ones truly we can't recoup these funds. We will submit and bring that back to you if that's what you prefer.
Thanks, Scott. Mr. Roybal, did you have?
Renee? Renee, are these the only ones that we have, or are there any others in the?
No, this is it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so motion to amend has been made and seconded. Is there any comments or questions from the committee on that motion to amend? Hearing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
The motion to amend has failed. We are back on the main resolution. Is there any further comments from the public on the resolution? And hearing no public comment, do I have a motion from the committee?
We already had a motion.
Oh, sorry, my mistake. So are there comments or questions from the committee on the resolution?
I just have one comment.
Go ahead.
Chairman White, through you, I recognize that these are old, but quite honestly, some of these go back to 1999, I believe, and I'm just, and I know that we have a very efficient treasurer's office and treasurer, and that she's, trying to clean these up. I guess my frustration is that we waited 24 years to worry about this, but I think when we're trying to really be good stewards of taxpayer money, we need to make sure we've taken every effort to collect these as possible and have the city attorney review them. So I would still ask that, regardless of how this motion goes, that we don't just quit trying to pursue it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No,
That's okay. Mr. Escabel and Mr. Roybal are ayes. Dr. Aldridge expressed that she is a no. The resolution does move forward. Next item, please.
Mr. Chairman, can I request that you just give our fellow folks in chambers a little note about us suspending the rules and their item being heard last?
Sure. Not sure that our technology was working, but to folks who are waiting in chambers on the excess seating that we've arranged for today, we're waiting to discuss item 19J that will be heard last on the agenda. And at that time, I will make a short recess so that we can transition folks from that room into this room so that we can hear that item.
Thank you. Item number 17, resolution expressing the will of the governing body to prioritize and adequately fund specified downtown 6 penny tax maintenance and improvement projects.
Staff report.
Mr. Chair, Jason Sanchez, Community Rec and Events. So this is in regard to the Depot Museum. The executive director, Christy McCarthy of the Depot, put a list together of potential projects or improvements to make to the Depot, which is a city-owned building that we lease to them. Of projects that would either make improvement interior on the inside or on the south facing exterior. Christy is in attendance today and would be available for questions, as would I.
Thank you, Jason. Stand by for any questions. One thing that I forgot to mention at the outset was that the chair of finance will not be voting on any of the items on the agenda unless there's a tie, which does not look like that is possible today. So with that, any questions for Jason or Ms. McCarthy, Dr. Aldrich?
Chairman White, through you, I had a question about the remodel of the kitchen and walls onto the first and second floors to make more usable and repair the first floor historical drinking fountain for an estimated cost of $85,000. I was just wondering what was included in the kitchen remodels.
Ms. McCarthy,
Mr. Chair,
make sure you press that. I think Jason pressed it. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, through you to Dr. Aldridge. I'm Christy McCarthy, the Executive Director of the Cheyenne Depot Museum. That does include a semi commercial kitchen. And we don't have a full layout of it at this point. Those are just immediate repairs to the sink, the any of the drainage, and including a fridge and stove, commercial stove.
Okay, and a follow-up question.
Go ahead.
Another question. It also calls for under item C, installing ground level receptacles outside for an estimated cost of $8,500. Are those receptacles, I was trying to understand, are they trash receptacles? Are they electrical receptacles?
Mr. Chair, through you to Dr. Aldridge, those are electrical receptacles.
Electrical.
That would be used for any kind of food truck placement, vendor placement, or any kind of outside activity that we need it for.
And just one more follow-up, sorry.
Go ahead, Dr. Aldrich.
Chairman White, I'm wondering through you, if we might be able to, I noticed that one item on here is cleaning storm windows throughout the building. And I'm just wondering if we might be able to get a copy of the lease that we have with the Cheyenne Depot Museum at some point from the city attorney or from the treasurer's office, whoever is the keeper, or the city clerk, whoever is the keeper of that lease.
I saw Ms. Foster shake her head.
Great, thank
Looks
you.
like that's possible. Thank you, Ms. McCarthy. Other comments or questions for Jason or Christy McCarthy?
Sure.
Mr. Escabel?
Yeah, do you, on the clock tower, exactly do the repairs for that one?
There's been a question posed about the clock tower. We are not on public comment yet. So go ahead. No,
Mr. Chair, through you to Councilman Escobar. I didn't hear the whole question,
Oh.
sorry.
What exactly are we gonna be doing to the clock tower?
So there's some repairs inside the mechanism that need to be done, as well as the face needs to be resurfaced.
And then follow, I know we had a specialist that was working on that clock in the past, is he still around? Is he the same guy?
Mr. Chair, the, Councilman Escobar, yes.
Thank you.
any further comments for Jason or Christie?
I do have a copy of the contract. I'll give to Jen.
Please do, thank you. Hearing no further comments, are there comments from the public? I believe that there is. Sir, if you could identify yourself for the record,
Michael White.
press that button. There you go, yep.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chairman, through the city, what is, the aspect of the definition of a semi-commercial kitchen at the depot? Have you hired an architect or an engineer? So when you ask to be a semi-commercial kitchen, that building never had a kitchen that was a commercial use on the second floor. Thank you.
Jason, you want to take a stab? I don't know that there was ever a commercial kitchen on the second floor. I know that there was one on the first floor many
It's
years
not,
ago.
it's not a kitchen, it's a sink.
Sink, excuse me. Christie, do you want to
So,
answer that?
sure, Mr. Chairman, through you. The commercial kitchen that we're talking about would be on the first floor. It's a sink area. And the semi would just mean that there would be a stove and a fridge added, but it's not completely vented. It would only be semi, so.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Do you have an additional?
Sir, I'm gonna have to ask you to talk into that microphone for the
I
folks.
said, are you allowed to have another comment?
Yes.
Based on what she said?
Go ahead.
Okay, you said a semi-commercial kitchen and a stove. A stove by the governing body rules and regs under the IBC, the IMC, the IM, the International Plumbing Code requires that any stove has to be vented. So if Mr. Tono from upstairs in the building department, compliance department wouldn't mind giving me more information on the stove, the literature and definitions are in the International Mechanical Code based on what the usage is, what's required from the code, so if I could entertain getting that information from him, I would like to do that. Thank you.
We will make that documented, sir, and get some further clarification before the next meeting. Dr. Aldrich, did you have anything to add?
I was just gonna say, Chairman White, through you, Jason and Christie, when you get ready to do that, I'd be more than happy to help you, because I think that you could avoid a stove by going with a warmer for catering purposes. So there's some ways around a stove that would require venting by putting in a warmer.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Aldrich. Any other comments from the public?
We have a lot of people right now hands.
We've got a lot of people on Zoom, so but no raised hands. So hearing no further public comment on that item, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would so move to approve an amount not to exceed $919,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments or questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of that resolution, please signify by saying aye.
I,
All right.
As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 18, resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Laramie County, Albany County, and the city of Laramie, allocating impact assistance funds resulting from an application to construct and operate a mine filed by the Gold King Corporation before the Industrial Siting Division.
Staff report.
Mr. Chairman, through you, Stephanie Boster, Cheyenne City Attorney. What you have in front of you is a resolution which would authorize Mayor Collins to sign a memorandum of understanding between Laramie County, Albany County, the city of Cheyenne, and the city of Laramie, providing the allocation of the impact funds related to the gold mine. we've already drafted the memorandum of understanding. We're way on top of it compared to the South Side Solar Farm. But what we've determined is the impact of this gold mine to the city of Cheyenne is likely going to be $484,127. The county's determined their impact is $370,600. And we've been working with the county and the city treasurer's office and the county assessor's office to make that determination. So we've got the memorandum declared that in front of the Industrial Siting Commission. We don't go to hearing until next month. So this resolution puts that in process, but basically outlines the impact of all 4 municipalities and county governments. And I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Stephanie. Comments or questions for Ms. Foster, Dr. Aldrich?
Chairman White, we did have some constituents who showed up, Stephanie, at Council and Coffee on Saturday morning to talk about the gold mine, the proposed gold mine. And I just want to make sure that this is only authorizing the mayor to talk about impact fees. This has nothing to do with the permitting process or anything else. This is only to authorize the mayor to make sure that we receive the impact fees accordingly and that they're fairly distributed.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Dr. Aldridge, that's correct. The city of Cheyenne has nothing to do with whether or not this gold mine gets approved or not. What this is about is we know that we're going to be impacted by the gold mine if the Industrial Siting Commission approves it. And this is the amount of funding that we anticipate will be impacted. So nothing we can do to stop the gold mine from coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments for Ms. Foster? Thank you, Stephanie. Stand by. Comments or questions from the public? We'll give Jen time to wade through the Zoom.
Seeing hands raised.
Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion from the committee?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 19E, sponsorship agreement between the city of Cheyenne and Holly Frontier Cheyenne Renewable Leasing Company LLC to designate Holly Frontier as the presenting sponsor of the 2023 Super Day Tour de Prairie, and Super Day 5K Walk and Run.
Staff report.
Hillary DeGovis, recreation manager for the CRA department. And this is a typical sponsorship agreement with Holly Frontier, bringing in $25,000 in revenue to be the sponsor of Super Day.
Thanks, Lori. How many years has Holly Frontier been the primary sponsor of this event? As long as I can remember, actually, so.
Yeah, and we talked to them about it. They didn't know, assuming around 35 years.
Wow. Kudos to them. Any comments or questions for Lori?
Sure.
Thanks. Oh, Mr. Escabel, go ahead.
Just a comment, but what I've heard from a lot of families that they'd like to see the city have 2 super days, because a lot of them end up leaving for vacations early in June. They end up missing it. So they were curious if we could have maybe one in August as well.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Escabel. I think I saw our community recreation and event staff faint. But duly noted. Go ahead, Jason.
Chair Jason Sanchez, Community Rec and Events. It's a great idea. There's a lot of planning that goes into putting on an event of this size. It takes months and months of planning. It takes a lot of staff and volunteers to put it on. And so while we would love to do multiple events of this size annually, I think right now one is our capacity.
Once a week.
That's called Friday night on the plaza.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Comments or questions from members of the public? Ma'am, we'll have Jason provide a brief explanation. And ma'am, when I say comments from the public, could you come up and identify yourself for the record, please?
I'm Holly Talbot. I haven't lived in Cheyenne long, so I'm wondering what Super Day is.
Go ahead, Jason.
Chair Jason Sanchez, Community Rec and Events. Super Day is actually the kickoff to summer. It's a way to highlight all of the parks and recreation events and activities that we provide. It's a community event held in Lions Park. We'll start at 10 o'clock in the morning, go to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We have a lot of fun activities for kids, arts and crafts, vendors, about 20 some food vendors out there. So it's just a great day to come out and enjoy the park and the weather and then see all the programs that we offer. Hope to see you there.
Thank you, Jason, and it's a fantastic event, ma'am. Highly recommend going. If there are no other comments from the public, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve an amount of $25,000.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Hearing none. All those in favor of that sponsorship agreement, please signify by saying aye.
I,
As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 19F, agreement between the City of Cheyenne and the Cheyenne Umpires Association for the 2023 and 2024 softball season.
Staff report.
Good afternoon, David Mullen, Support Specialist. Yes, this contract is in front of you today for the 2023-2024 season. We went with a 2-year contract this year, as to last year we went to a 1-year contract. The layout's pretty similar as years past. The only difference is this year we increased the pay for both umpires and scorekeepers. We went from $35 a game to $40 and $15 a game to $18 respectively. And as well, we went with a 2-year contract. We kept the mentoring program just like in years past. So that's essentially all the changes we made for this.
Thank you. Stand by. Any comments or questions? Dr. Aldrich?
I have 2 questions, Chairman White. The first is, in item 3, the additional fees. It says in addition, a 35-cent per scheduled game fee will be charged to the city. 35 cents is worth the accounting effort?
Go ahead.
Through you, Chair, Dr. Aldridge. Yes, in years past, that's been pretty standard. We've done the 35 cent for several years now. It's for the association for the city, the 35 cents.
Well, and it says that we're going to be charged the 35 cents. The city of Cheyenne is charged the 35 cents.
Through you, Chair, Dr. Aldridge. Yes, that is correct. As in years past, we've had the same 35 cent charge in each contract.
Lori, did you want to provide any further details?
That is a request by the softball association or the umpires association. They charge us 35 cents per game to schedule. So that is something that they've always charged us.
Sure. Any further questions?
I'm just trying to understand, we're paying 35 cents,
Per game for them to schedule.
but it's for their convenience that we're scheduling these games? Or it's for our convenience?
They're scheduling their umpires in softball.
Oh, I see.
Right.
That's the service they're providing.
Their
It's
service.
not just to have the game scheduled, it's to schedule the employees. Okay, that wording is very, yeah, great. And were there any comments from the umpires or the people who do this? I know in the years past, we get a lot of comments, sometimes from the officials that they're either pleased or not pleased with the agreement. Have we had any comments this year?
Go ahead.
Through you, Chair, Dr. Aldridge. We met and agreed on this contract. Both sides are good with it. We went the 2-year contract to lock that in, as well as the increased pay. So both sides are good.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Chair,
Mr. Escabel?
here you, a while back, we had 2 umpires to 1 game. The association received a $10 increase for when we were paying 2 umpires. So now that we're paying just 1. Their increase was $10 for the last contract. They're getting 30 a game, now at 40.
I think that increase is correct. Go ahead, Lori.
Yes, through you, Chairman.
Don't forget to hit the button.
Through you, Chairman, to Councilman Escabel. So the reason the umpire association requested to go to 1 umpire was because it was very difficult to find enough umpires. So that 1 was getting paid $35 an hour. And it was something that seemed to work for them.
and agree.
Follow-up was that. During the season with the mentorship program, aren't we allowing them to have a second umpire on the field?
Through your chair. So yes, we did have that. We put that in last year's contract. And it didn't seem to be utilized. So I think it was lack of new umpires to train and mentor. So we put it in there to give them an opportunity to train and allow those new umpires to be on the field at, I believe it was $15 a month, but it wasn't utilized, but they requested to have it again this year. So hopefully we'll have some new umpires that they can train.
Umpire, it's quite difficult for them to be able to
Yeah.
see the whole field. Thank you.
Thank you. Any last questions for? Any questions out there? So, stand by for any further questions, comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of the agreement between the city and the Cheyenne Umpires Association for 2023 and 2024, please signify by saying aye.
Aye, sorry.
Aye.
As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 19G, right-of-way license agreement between the city of Cheyenne and Bent 15 LLC for the portion of lots 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18, block 413, original city of Cheyenne, Laramie County, Wyoming, known as 1509 Bent Avenue.
Staff report, Mr. Cobb.
Good afternoon, Chairman White, members of the Finance Committee. Before you, I just says Tom Cobb, city engineer, sorry about that. Before you and for your consideration, as Jensen indicated, the right-of-way license agreement for the city of Cheyenne and a property located at 1509 Bent, known as Bent 15 LLC. The property is in the historic building developed at 100% lot coverage and utilizes ramps and stairs and other appurtenances encroaching into the public right-of-way for public business and access purposes. The licensee desires to redevelop the property for professional offices and desires to either retain as is or modify and update to the current codes as necessary for the operation of their business. And this is under a site plan known as 1509 Bent Avenue. The engineering staff recommends the governing body to grant such license to allow continued use of the right of way pursuant to certain terms and conditions. As summarized, I give the highlights. The license shall be perpetual unless modified or terminated in writing by one of the two parties. Those facilities are maintained or used and not in violation of the terms and covenants and conditions of the agreement. The licensee attempts to sell, assign, transfer, or sublet a portion of the property that would then change the agreement. Also, the licensee fails to comply with any terms and covenants conditions of the agreement. Also, if the licensee ceases to operate its business for a period of 2 consecutive years. The responsibility of the licensee would be to pay for anything and use of costs and damages which result in highways of their improvements. The licensee shall surely be responsible for any and all installation, repairs, and maintenance of all their facilities. And at this time, and the reason you're in front of finance, we didn't assign a cost for this. There's nothing in the code so far. I'm trying to clean all these up. There's several occasions all over the city where businesses use pieces in the right of way. So I guess just to call your attention that if we want to start associating a fee with this, that's why we're here. So other than that, there is no fee. And I'll have any questions you might have of me.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb, and thank you for your efforts on this. Any comments or questions for Mr. Cobb? Dr. Aldridge.
Chairman White, through you. I'm just curious, are you aware of any other communities who charge a fee for businesses to be in the right of way?
Chairman White, through you to Dr. Aldridge. The only ones I'm aware of so far is Charles brought to my attention that the city of Laramie does charge a fee for their particular pieces in their. But other than that, I'm not aware of anything in particular.
And is it a one-time, through you, Chairman White, is it a one-time fee or is it an ongoing annual fee? What is the fee structure?
Chairman White, through you to Dr. Aldridge. I understand it's an annual fee.
Thanks, okay.
Any further questions from committee? Thank you, Mr. Cobb, stand by. Comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of this professional services agreement, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item.
Number 19H, professional services agreement between the city of Cheyenne and TDSI, the Design Studio Incorporated for the gymnastics facility site development, engineering, and architectural plans project.
Staff report.
Mr. Chair, Jason Sanchez, Community Rec Events. So this project has been in the works for quite some time now. Our current program, we are using a gym in East Ridge School. We have approximately 400 kids in our program with approximately 260 on a wait list. The contract before you today is for the engineering services for constructing a new facility on the property we own west of the Ice Event Center. We have to get the engineering work done to know what the cost to construct would be. Our goal is to have the engineering piece completed by July so that we could go out for proposals for the construction. Once we have a quote for construction, we'll come back to the governing body with that cost so that the governing body knows what the actual cost to construct the facility would be. The fees for the engineering work we're paying for out of a recreation program fund. We've been anticipating this work coming up, and so we had the dollars set aside to pay for this portion. The contract is for $293,844 with TDS and it's on me. I do have Randy Byers in attendance. He is the engineer to answer any questions, and I'm here to answer any questions as well.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Jason. Comments or questions for Jason or Mr. Byers? Doesn't look like any at this time. Stand by. Comments or questions from members of the public?
Hi, Holly Talbot. I came here right after the gymnasium was voted down, so I'm kind of curious how they're doing gymnasium now.
Ma'am, I think what you're referring to is when the gymnastics, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, that the gymnastics facility was voted down on the 6-penny ballot. And it was a very close vote. With that, the city has tried to make plans to proceed with building it ourselves. And Jason, go ahead and clarify anything that you need to.
Mr. Chair, Jason Sanchez, Community Rec, that is correct. We have sold some of our properties, the neighborhood facility. We sold that to the school district. That's where our gymnastics program used to be housed. We've sold property in Holiday Park, a parking lot, and a couple other parcels at the city owned. Those funds would be applied toward the construction of a new facility, as well as we do have some ARPA funds available. Once we get the quote for construction, then we'll know what the total dollar amount is. And we would then identify which pools of money are available for that construction.
Thanks, Jason. Ma'am, did that answer your question?
I have to say, not really. I don't understand how something got voted down and it's still being put forth. I mean,
It got voted down from the 6-penny ballot so that that fund that people vote for could be used to build a new
so it's just
facility.
coming from different funds.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Other comments from the public?
Michael White through you, Mr. Chairman. That's one of my points is that it was voted down by the voters. I understand the city does have the right to reconsider, but it was voted down by Proposition 11. The voters spoke on that behalf. In addition, I can attest to personally that when my kids were growing up, the gymnastics program was a good program, but at that time, like Jason says, there was also a lot of facilities that were used. And I also thank Jason for the fact that they are going to Randy Byers' firm to find out what the cost of the building would be before they actually continue on. We could say the same thing about other projects that the city has done that has not done the same thing. Well, my question is also, we have a private entity that was out by the point, that was a private gymnastics center. And I believe it's not in business anymore. So the entertainment would be on my behalf, as I realized that the city has long been wanting to do this, but if a private entity can't do it, why does the taxpayer dollars have to take over the burden of doing it? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jason?
Jason Sanchez, Community Rec and Events. I'll do my best to answer the question. The city's program has been in existence far longer than any of the private groups. The private groups have come and gone. It is still an activity that the youth in our community want to participate in. That's evident by the number of kids in the program and the number of kids on the wait list. The facility on the north side of town did house gymnastics, but it's about a 14,000 square foot building. And in order for us to meet our current number needs and grow into the future, we need to look at building a facility that can accommodate that. And so we're looking at all of those pieces. We see the number of kids and our community is growing. We feel, and our gymnastics instructor, our head coach is here, but we feel that if we are able to absorb or at least be able to provide the service for the 700 kids that are currently interested in participating, we could probably grow those numbers by adding other type of classes to the facility.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public?
I have one more question. My kids grew up in gymnastics, so I'm definitely in favor of gymnastics and stuff, but is there not any other buildings they could do? I grew up in a very small town in Colorado, and we had one big gymnasium, and we ran everything in shifts. It's like you either were the 6 o'clock morning shift that used the gym, or you were the right after school that used the gym, or the next shift.
Jason?
Once again, I'll try my best to answer the question. Right now, we are in a school building, but the request to the school district for use of their gyms has exceeded even their supply. So we compete with everybody else in the community for use of school district facilities because we don't own our own. There are not many private gyms in town that people can go to that can accommodate all of the different sports. We have the Beast that generally caters to the basketball and some of the pickleball. We have the Y, same thing. They generally cater to the pickleball and the basketball. But we live in a community where the weather isn't always conducive to be outside. And so there's a request or a demand for a lot of indoor activities.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is there, is there any further comment from the public?
I just have one more question. Is it gonna be used more than gymnasium? Is it gonna be used for other things too?
Share through you, Jason Sanchez, Community Rec and Events. The primary purpose will be for gymnastics. Okay, but if we're able to construct the building that we are designing, it'll be a 30,000 square foot building. There may be a time until we reach the full capacity of gymnastics that we could have other sports use a portion of the building. But the primary intention of this facility would be for gymnastics. If we could construct a second facility on the same site, we could use that for other indoor sports.
Thank you. If there are no other comments from the public, do I have a motion from the committee?
Mr. Chairman,
But
I do have a hand raised, sorry,
Oh.
online. I'm sorry.
it's okay. We'll go to the person online.
Laura Bowen, you should be able to unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, ma'am. Please state
Thank
your
you so
question.
much. To this finance meeting, my question, and so many people have asked me this, and first of all, I am so excited that we're getting this considered in Cheyenne. I think it'll be a great addition. But is it not possible has anyone considered purchasing that existing gymnastics building rather than a new build? Is that
Jason, you can, to you, ma'am, and Jason, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was looked into and the asking price was far more than what the city could afford.
do you know what
well over 1 million. Jason,
Well over
I
1
think
million.
it's Closer to 2, I think. Go ahead, Jason.
Mr. Chair, through you, the answer, what I would add to that is just the building on the north side of town is for sale. It could be an option if when we go out to bid for construction, if we find that the prices of construction have exceeded what our budget is, the pots of money that we have to draw from, that may be where we go back to, at least for consideration. It is a 14,000 square foot building. Again, it could meet today's needs, but it does not have the space to allow for like state championships or different type of meets. A larger facility gives us that opportunity to host larger events or to bring meets to Cheyenne. It also gives us the opportunity to expand our programs. If we're moving into that building to the north, we can only meet today's needs, not tomorrow's. And so that's what we're looking at, but again, once we get all of the quotes back after the design work, then we'll know what our next steps are.
And may I ask what the anticipated square footage is of the new facility? I may have missed that.
And I apologize, the anticipated square footage for the new building is 30,000 square feet.
Oh my, wonderful. Well, as I say, I think it'll be a great addition. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any other comments?
I don't have anyone else here online.
Hearing no further comments from the public, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve an amount not to exceed $293,844.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Escabel.
for the record, Jason, I wanted you to give us the numbers of the kids that we have in the program now and the number of kids that are on the way back.
Mr. Chair, through you, I believe our current number is 397 kids actively in the program with approximately 260 kids on the waiting list.
But follow-up comment is
Go ahead.
that number really shows the need for this facility in Cheyenne and why we're looking at a much larger facility as well.
Yes. Other comments or questions from the committee? I have a quick comment, and even though I can't cast a vote, since there won't be a tie today, but the question was posed that the voters voted this issue down, so why continue on? If you look at the documents from that 6-penny ballot, number one, the issue was voted down by very few votes. I think it was fewer than 50, maybe 50 or 60 votes. The precincts within city limits voted in favor by a large margin, whereas it was the county, the votes out in the county that didn't. So the fact that I think the city is proceeding forward is good. And if there are no other comments or information from the committee, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of this professional services agreement, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is he opposed? No one's opposed. That item moves forward. Next item, please.
Easement agreement between the city of Cheyenne and Visionary Communications LLC for constructing, reconstructing, maintaining, operating, repairing, inspecting, surveying, altering, abandoning, replacing, and or removing fiber optic cable and related material at 514 West Fox Farm Road.
Staff report.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. John Copper, Fire Chief, Cheyenne Fire Rescue. The item you have before you today is a fiber optic easement agreement with Visionary Broadband to install an enclosure for their internet communications, fiber optic solutions right next to the communications tower at Fire Station number 2 at Fox Farm, where they currently have a lease agreement with the city of Cheyenne. The reason for them needing to place the shelter is to allow the ability to place the needed electronics to facilitate their network and to continue with a ring of redundancy for the Cheyenne area. The requested easement provides no additional burden and is revenue to the city for a one-time amount of $5,113.63 and is contingent upon survey, plating, and permitting. Questions regarding the project can be addressed by Mr. Greg Greenough from Visionary Broadband, and any questions regarding the agreement can be addressed by our city attorney. And with that, we will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Excuse me. Thank you, Chief, and stand by. I believe there are some questions. Dr. Aldrich?
Chairman White, through you, I'm looking at the fiber optic easement form that we were provided, and it shows a consideration of $10. And then I'm looking at page one of, that's page one, and I guess, and then there's a page 1 of 2 that says monetary agreement that outlines the $5,113.63. And it looks like there may be a typo in the second paragraph there where it says payment for the 30 by 30 pad and $613.63. It actually reads 6,001, it says 6,000. Well, it should be 6, I don't know what it reads, but it's 6,13.63.
Dr. Aldridge, I did catch that this morning, and so I did clarify with the attorney's office that it's just a scrivener there, the extra comma.
Okay, so I guess I'm confused by the $10 on the front page and then the total that Chief Copper just gave us.
And Mr. Chairman.
Stephanie, go ahead.
Thank you. Stephanie Foster, Cheyenne City Attorney. Typically, every easement that comes before the city of Cheyenne will be a $10 amount in the actual easement documents. There's usually a separate monetary agreement. Okay. And the point of the easement is for filing with the county assessor's office. It's not dependent on the amount of money actually spent. We do have the representative for the company who could also speak to this. He does easements throughout the state of Wyoming, I believe.
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, sir. Did you have some information to add?
Yes, Greg Greeno with Visionary Broadband out of Gillette. Excuse me, we're requesting this easement for our fiber upgrade and construction that we're doing in Cheyenne. As far as a question on the $10 on the easement, that is standard language that is used throughout the country. It's just a number that's put in there. Some of them are $1, some of them are $10 in pounds, some are $10. The main reason why is the easement is recorded with the county. The monetary agreement is not. If that answers your question.
Dr. Aldrich?
Chairman White, through you. I also notes that we're receiving $13.63 rods at $45 per rod, and that is correct. That is a correct number.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Basically, the way that was put together was we are paying you so much for the 30-foot by 30-foot pad where the enclosure will be for our electronics and our fiber. And then there's a breakdown for the actual footage or rods of right of way or ditch that we're going to have to bring the fiber to that.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from members of the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
Mr. Chair, move to approve the amount of $5,113.63.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments or questions from the committee?
Again, what do we get for 63 cents?
Only the shadow knows. Maybe perhaps we can get some clarification on that between today and next Monday. If there are no further comments or questions from members of the committee, all those in favor of this easement agreement, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item, please. Again, 19J will be heard last on the agenda. Next item, please.
Number 20C, consideration of bid number E-13-23 for 10 portable litter fences for the city of Cheyenne landfill.
Staff report, please.
Mr. Chair. This is a bid, I'm Sam Petrini, I'm the landfill manager. This was a bid that was solicited for 10 portable litter fences in the landfill. We received 3 bids. One from Method Technologies was for $79,000. And I recommend, something.
Thank you, Sam. Stand by. Any comments or questions from the committee? Dr. Aldrich.
Chairman White, I'm just curious, Sam, if you can tell us if these are what miles these are rated for wind?
We have to be rated for at least 65 miles.
Thank you.
Further comments or questions from the committee? Hearing none, comments or questions from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve an amount not to exceed $79,000.
Sir, it's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of this bid consideration, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 20D, consideration of bid number E-15-23 for 95-gallon and 65-gallon automated refuse carts for the City of Cheyenne Sanitation Division.
Staff report.
Craig Boyd. Craig Boyd, Public Works.
You gotta press that button. There you go.
Okay, I didn't see the light. Craig Boyd, Public Works Department, this is for our 95-gallon, 65-gallon refuse carts. This bid was for $282,845. And will contain a total of 4,250 refuse carts with 325 cents of repair parts. The low bid was Rare Pacific Company out of Texas, and I recommend approval.
Thank you, Craig. Stand by. Comments or questions for Mr. LaVoy?
I have one.
Dr. Aldrich?
Chairman White, I was just curious, through you to Mr. Lavoy, where do we use the 65 and where are the 95 used? How do we determine, are the 65 used like in apartment houses or where are the 65 used versus the 95?
Chairman White, through you to Councilwoman Aldridge, it is a choice of the resident. They have different options. They can have a 95, they can have 95, 95 recycle. They could have a 65, 65 recycle. You can also have a 65 refuse and a 95 recycle. So it's optional to the residents of the City of Cheyenne. There's 3 pricing structures.
Okay, so there is a different price for the smaller containers.
Yes.
There are no other questions for Mr. LaVoy. Comments or questions from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve an amount not to exceed $282,845.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of this bid consideration, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 20E, consideration to purchase between the City of Cheyenne and Front Range Fire Apparatus for the purchase of 1 BME fire trucks, LLC BME Freightliner Model 34 Target Type 3 4x4 fire engine.
Staff report.
Mr. Chair, Council, I'm John Fitzgerald, Battalion Chief of Cheyenne Fire Rescue. Before you for your consideration is the purchase of the said 2023 BME Type 3 fire engine. As everyone knows, in 2021 in November, we passed the 6th penny vote to purchase our apparatus. We currently do have 1 ladder truck and 3 Type 1 fire engines being built for us. And being able to do so and paying for that early has saved us some money on that. Moving forward, we are now being held hostage by the price increase in manufacturers, considering our timelines and the market uncertainty and volatility that we have. We have the opportunity currently to direct purchase of this 2023 Type 3 fire engine, which will save us time, money, and provide immediate need for our community. This apparatus purchase would close out our fleet needs for the 2021 6th penny ballot that we have. We have also received permission from Director Nemechek to increase our fleet based on the organizational and community growth. The cost of this is at $428,000. And if purchased or we purchased this through our timeline or current timeline, prices could be as much as $525,000 to $550,000.
and a time frame of 500 days remaining. The availability of this fire truck will be available to us in the next 2 months and hopefully be in service by July 1st, especially during Frontier Days and grass fire season coming up. In that. Stand by for myself for answering questions. Also do have TJ Bartlebort and Chief Copper on Zoom.
Thank you, sir. Stand by for any questions. Questions from the committee?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Royball.
So, we're getting it from Front Range Fire Apparatus.
Mr. Chair, through you. Yes, that's the dealer that's doing it. PME is the manufacturer. Front Range offers different apparatus that they sell, including BME and Pierce.
So is this one sitting on their lot right now, or is it in the pipeline?
It's in the pipeline. Right now, the chassis is there. They're working on the box itself. There are certain things that we can do. We can actually put on our stripes right now. And make it like our trucks currently, including our insignias for that. And this vehicle is four-wheel drive to be able to work out in the fields, considering how much annexation we have grown.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation. Other questions from the committee? Hearing none. Questions from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve an amount not to exceed $428,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Hearing none. All those in favor of this consideration to purchase, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item.
Number 23B, resolution authorizing Paid Health LLC to provide advocacy and financial case management services for eligible specialties prescription drugs through alternative funding programs effective July 1st, 2023.
Staff report.
Good afternoon, Chairman of the Line Finance Committee. This is another presentation for a resolution, create a partnership with our consultant Noble Benefits and Paid Health. Which partner with our very low number of insured. We have over 1,000 insured belly buttons with the Blue Cross City of Cheyenne. This will impact less than 1%. And it's going to help find some funding available for those high dollar medication, especially drugs.
Thank you, Darren. Stand by. Questions for Mr. Haas? Hearing none. Comments or questions from the public?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Seth Boyd. I am an employee with the City of Cheyenne, also represent Cheyenne Public Employees Association. Since this item came onto the agenda and went through the council process the first time, I have had other employees of the city contact me with concerns about this proposal. I don't know if the council is aware of the application process that Paid Health uses, but the HR department sent, at least to me, a sample of what that process looked like. And I forwarded that on to some other employees, and there were some serious concerns about that application process. And so there are concerns from some of these employees about what that might look like. I realize that it affects only 1% of the employees now, but any employee could have a child or themselves diagnosed with something new that requires this medication. So it could affect really any employee that's on the system. So there are definitely concerns about the Paid Health choice and the fact that it isn't really optional. It is required, mandatory, and then you have to fill out this application, and that application is mandatory. And then you could get denied from that application, but the concern is that the application process is something that some people don't want to go through. I believe that's why I think that probably at least one of the staff members who contacted me probably contacted some council members. And so that might be why it's back today and why it was reconsidered. And one of the main concerns that these various staff members I've talked to have had about this is just they didn't even know it was coming. They haven't received the information. I talked to a different staff member about a different subject and just happened to bring this up in passing, and they're like, wait, what is this? How come I haven't heard about it? What is this doing? So there's a little bit of concern about, how well people get to know these things that are coming down. I don't recall seeing it on an HR tidbits or on, email to all city employees. I only recall seeing it here when it was on the agenda for council. So that's definitely a concern that some staff members have. I don't know if I can speak any further to any council member, any employees' concerns, but if council members have any questions for me, I can answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Stand by. Any further comments or questions from the public?
I don't have anything over here.
Okay. Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
We would have comments first.
Do you have comments or questions from the committee?
I just,
Are there?
I want to make sure I understand something.
Please go ahead, Dr. Aldridge, and I have some comments to make that I was just gonna make after the committee motion.
Chairman White, through you, I just want to make sure I understand this completely. Mr. Hawes. There's a list of drugs that are very expensive, that are name brand drugs. And if we have employee or a family member who's insured, that's currently been prescribed that drug, we would ask them to complete a form, an application. And there's a navigator, so to speak, that would walk them through that form for privacy's sake. So it'd be just between them and the navigator that they're working with. And then this company goes out and takes a look at any refund offers or any discounted offers that would be available through the manufacturer. And if those are available through the manufacturer, then we would basically receive that. We would say the difference between what we were paying for the name brand drug originally and what they're able to get it for on the discount, which is where our savings comes in. And if that drug then goes to a generic drug, then it would come back underneath our primary plan, and the insureds would be able to get it from that through our normal process of our insurance plan. This is only for those drugs that are in that category, and only until there's a generic option available that they would take. And it would be mandatory that they at least go through this process to see if they could qualify for any of those discounts or refunds from the manufacturer. Is that correct? Am I understanding it correctly?
Yeah, Doctor, you're correct. The only thing I would probably say is the funding comes from the rebate dollars from that manufacturer. So Pay Health would retain a portion of those rebate dollars. The majority of those go back to the city on the self-funding plan. But everything else you said is absolutely correct.
And follow up. I've not heard from any city employees, Mr. Lloyd, about this at all, by email or by telephone. So I'm just curious, what were the steps used to inform employees about this process?
But right now, once this resolution goes through, our concierge services with Nova will start contacting next week after those 9, 8, 9, 10 individuals. We didn't feel there was a need to set up a big flag for all employees when it impacts less than 7, 8, 9 employees. We're going to work one-on-one with them to help them, guide them through the process.
Did we notify that small number of employees that this was in the process?
No, we have not until the resolution goes through. This doesn't start till July 1, so we'll have 2 or 3 months to help them through and prepare and hold their hand.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Roybal.
Through the small number of employees that we do have on these, what are we doing for them now? Are we just paying the inflated rates or the retail rates?
Yeah, there's paying their copay on that drug, and if they continue to apply for this, if we adopt this resolution and they don't meet the minimum qualifications, that they will continue to get the rate they're paying today. They won't have an escalator rate.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Escobar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to you, Director Haas. So when the benefits committee gets together, usually at the end of the year, and reviews the benefits. At what time during the year does that happen? That like November?
Good to you. Mr. Osborne, we meet monthly, the appointment committee, there's members from the CPA, there's a member from fire, members of police. We have a good representation of members that are to take this information back that we discussed monthly to share with their teams.
Well, I'm assuming that this was discussed months ago with those members.
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Chair,
Mr. Escabel.
during the first time we went through in the resolution, the one problem I had with it was that it took into account household income, which I was uncomfortable with employees having to go to their spouses and give that information back to the city. And also understood that it was most of the qualifications were in the 400 to 500% above federal poverty level based on household size. Is that correct?
I cannot tell you that answer. The first question, no, it doesn't come back to the city. It goes back, we don't have that, it's called PHI, HIPAA related information. That goes back to our concierge and PL, but I cannot answer your second question.
Yeah, well, they get that information.
They do.
Okay.
Yes.
Still. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from the committee? Hearing none, we've already done public comment, I believe. So I will ask for a motion from the committee.
I would move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I'll just make a quick comment since I was the council member who asked to have this item reconsidered. I met with Mr. Haas, with Diana from Novo Benefits and our city attorney last week. I did have some employees reach out to me, so I posed those specific questions during that meeting. Learned that meeting did alleviate my concerns. We're talking about perhaps a maximum of 10 or 11 employees. The concierge service that was described to me was a very positive thing. How employees will have one-on-one conversations and guidance throughout this process. And just the fact that up to this point, all of at least my interactions with Novo Benefits has been extremely positive. They've been tremendous to work with over the last few years in preventing employee health insurance costs from increasing, which a lot of folks can't say. So my concerns were alleviated in there. I think I appreciate Ms. Foster being present in that meeting too. And after I given those answers, haven't heard back from the employee yet, but hopefully that person's concerns have been resolved as well. Are there any further comments or questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That item moves forward with Mr. Escabel as a no. That brings us to our last item on the agenda. We are going to take a short recess at this time to allow folks who are in the other part of the building to make their way into the committee building for discussion on item 19J.
Have you ever been arrested?
I said, nobody needs to be arrested.
I've never been arrested.
We're
Good.
back in it.
We can't say that.
Okay, we will re-adjourn the March 20th. 2023 Finance Committee meeting. We are now going to be considering item 19J. I appreciate everyone's patience as we work through the other items. I also wanted to just say to everyone that I'll let the clerk read in the item first, and then I'll make a couple statements. Go ahead, Jen.
Number 19J, lease agreement between the city of Cheyenne and Meals on Wheels of Cheyenne Incorporated for a portion of a property located at 2015 South Greeley Highway.
Thank you. Okay, before I begin with the staff report, I just want to tell everyone, thank you again for being here today. Your voice is appreciated and your community engagement is also appreciated. I did want to let everybody know we will be limiting discussion to 2 minutes per person. I will ask everybody if they could please be respectful. I know this is a very emotional issue. I also wanted to share, if Brittany allows, I know that discussions are taking place. I don't have specific details, but I think that there has been some progress made between last week and this week. Again, I don't know what those details are, but I can tell you conversations are taking place. So with that, I'll ask for a staff report if there is one.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, can I
Yes.
just so just a reminder for those of you on Zoom that we do not take questions in the chat. So if you'd like to speak, you do need to raise your hand and state your name for the record.
And please be patient. We do also, for the folks on Zoom, we do also have a full house in person. So I would ask everybody that they please be patient as we work our way through all of the public comments. Go ahead, Mr. Fountain.
All right, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Eric Fountain, Director of Compliance. What you have before you today is an agreement or lease agreement with the Meals on Wheels in the city of Cheyenne. This facility would be used as a Metro Animal Services facility as a Plan B option. If for some reason negotiations between the Cheyenne Animal Shelter and the city of Cheyenne do not come to an amicable resolution. By no means does that mean that this is the done deal or that this is the only thing that we have in front of us today to reach that point of an agreement with the city and the Cheyenne Animal Shelter. Within that lease agreement, everything has been looked over by the city attorney, myself, I believe the mayor's office, Meals on Wheels, their board, has an opportunity to look at that. There is only one modification within that lease agreement, and that is for the water services. They would ask that the city of Cheyenne assume that responsibility and role in utilizing those services and then therefore being responsible for those services. Should we entertain this lease and enter into that lease at a later time? But what you have before you today is the lease agreement as presented, and we would ask for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Fountain.
Mr. Chair.
Are there, yes, go ahead, Mr. Roy.
So that's the only significant difference between the lease dated March 9th and the one dated March 17th.
Mr. Chairman, for you to Councilman Roy, yes, sir, that is correct. That's the only modification that we had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Escobar.
so basically, it's a backup plan.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Councilman Escobar, yes, that is correct. Ultimately, I think what we have heard and what we are working through here at the city is that we would like to continue with that relationship. I think what we're trying to do at this point in time is find that amicable measure to make sure that we can deliver the request and they can provide the services based on what we're paying. And I think there's a little bit of a thought process that we can achieve that. So this would just be a backup plan, a plan B, so that if we had to take over those services and offer those services to the community, we would be able to do so.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Eric or Mr. Fountain before we proceed with comments from the public? Dr. Aldridge.
I just have a comment. I just want to say I really appreciate you taking time to do a tour on Friday for some of us, and I know that you've got another one planned. And for all of your efforts on this, because I do think that we have to have some sort of plan B in case we can't come to an agreement. So, while it may be a exercise in futility, and I hope it is, I appreciate all your time and energy on this.
Accountable.
Thank you, Mr. Fountain. Okay. Are you ready, Jen?
You're ready for the timer?
Yep. With that, comments or questions from members of the public? Councilman Laybourne?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course,
Can you turn your mic?
excuse me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, I am not a member of the public. I am a member of the council. And that's why I'm here today. I'm a member of the council who's going to be participating in this discussion and has been very involved over the years in all the things that are discussed here with the animal shelter. So, first of all, I want to state that I'm very confused. And I think that confusion is broadly shared with a lot of people about this issue. We came to this from a rather chafing experience with the president of the animal shelter and really caused a lot of friction. I think that we also look at certainly the interest in the new CEO and my encouragement of her and encouragement of her being hired. And now we are at this lease agreement that I went with some members of the council Friday to look at. So there's just a tremendous amount of confusion here, but there is clearly one theme that I heard discussed moments ago that I'm very interested in, and that is the question of negotiation. Where is the council involvement in those negotiations? Eventually, this is going to come to us. I think it's very, very important that we know who, when, and how those discussions are proceeding. I believe you just mentioned, Mr. Chairman, that you weren't aware of what was going on. So certainly, if we're talking about that, I think it's very important that we share and understand that very important matter. I certainly believe we can negotiate, and I believe we should. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Laybourne. Leanne? Please state your name just as you did on the previous issue. Thank you.
But my first question is, what happened to Meals on Wheels?
I'll ask for some clarification, but I believe this is just an extra building that they had, Dr. Aldridge?
Yeah, they used to have a flea market that helped to fund their activities at Meals on Wheels, and the flea market during COVID. They decided with the new director not to continue that pursuit. And so it has left 2 buildings empty, and they've rented out one of the other buildings, but there are 2 remaining buildings.
And I know the Meals on Wheels is still there. I spent Wednesday morning there with the meals.
Okay. And my second question is, I keep seeing that the city or Cheyenne Animal Shelter has given a counter offer, but I haven't seen anything about the amounts.
I couldn't tell you what those amounts are. I
Okay.
just know that discussions have been taking place between the mayor and Ms. Tennant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We just got an email.
Hello, ma'am. Welcome. Can you please identify yourself?
Sure, I'm Micah Earmart. in
Oh,
Cheyenne.
yes, I've been in email correspondence with you on this issue, so I'm pleased to have you here today. Thank you, ma'am.
My question to the animal shelter people is that if they do not receive the funds that they're requesting from the city, do they still anticipate remaining in business? I mean, are they just gonna go away, or are they going to remain?
I couldn't answer that, but I think Ms. Tennant is here. Oh, I saw her earlier.
Well, I think that's certainly one thing that we should know, and if in fact they do intend to stay, regardless of what money they request, I don't understand why they can't work it the same way that the jail does, which is county, with the city, where they simply, the city has to pay a fee for each inmate that is utilizing the county jail. So that is one option, and it is my understanding that the animal shelter is not a government facility. So, you know, for fundraising and, you know, this is a rich area. And people are passionate about their animals. I'm hard pressed to think that they could not stay in business if they so choose to do. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
I'm Dr. Tasha Lynch and here to try to answer.
So could you pull that
yeah.
microphone down a little bit so
Absolutely.
everybody can hear you? And please state your name again. Thank you.
Dr. Tasha Lynch, and I'm the medical director for the Cheyenne Animal Shelter. I'm not going to be able to answer the last person's questions in full, but we do have considerations for alternative services if we do lose the contract. Our goal is to focus on continuing to offer the services as we have in the past, though, so we're focusing on that right now.
Thank you for that information. Much appreciated. And thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Hello, I'm Kendra McAllister. I am a board member on both the Cheyenne Animal Shelter Board and the Cheyenne Animal Foundation Board. I'd like to address a few things. Brittany and our President Richard Winter did have to leave as they're going into a meeting with the mayor, so that's why they're not here. I do have a couple questions about the actual property itself and its capabilities of being able to do this animal housing. So when would the retrofitting begin on the leased property in order to get it up and running?
I don't know if Mr. Fountain's still here. Mr. Fountain, do you want to take a stab at that, or Dr. Albert? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the question is when, and really it's more of a formality of when first step is first, and that is the lease. But I think before that, we're still trying to figure out these negotiations. So we have not engaged any kind of RFP process to even begin what that conversation would look like in terms of developing that center. And the second part of that question would be that if we did go on that path, would that be the facility that we would absolutely do it in? I think at this point, this is a placeholder for us, and this is alternative B, but there is no definitive answer at this point.
I want to thank you, Eric, for that clarification, because a lot of folks reached out to me over the weekend with specific questions on the RFP process. And had we begun engaging in that? And so thank you for that information. I didn't think that we had, because I didn't think that we could, but thank you for clarifying that.
That's correct.
Oh, TJ, on that particular issue, TJ Barterboard, our purchasing manager, go ahead.
Committee members, TJ Barterboard, purchasing manager for the city of Cheyenne. Just to confirm for the record, the lease of property is a unique endeavor in that there's very many properties on the market, and being able to compare one to another with amenities, parking, square footage, heating, the area, HVAC, all of these features, there's no way to compare one to another. So just to confirm, an RFP process is not required by the city purchasing policy in order to make a selection. Your recent memory will remind you that we purchased a facility for the transit program on Westland, which was basically a direct selection where this facility met our needs and it's presented to the governing body for review, similarly what we're doing today. So I just wanted to confirm that.
Thank you, TJ. Dr. Aldrich.
I just have a question, Chairman White, through you to TJ. My understanding, I attended a WAM meeting last week, and my understanding is that the state legislature passed legislation in this session and that goes into effect on April 1st that would allow us to do $75,000, up to $75,000 in construction without going out to bid. Is that correct?
Chairman White, through you to Dr. Aldrich. Dr. Aldrich, that is correct. That does go, that was Senate File 164. Robin and I actually have a meeting with the mayor this afternoon to discuss our way forward on implementation. It will require sweeping changes to policy and city code in order to enact those items. So until that goes into effect in code and policy, we will not be able to utilize that to our full extent, but that is correct. The new purchasing threshold has risen from 35,000 to 75,000.
So the retrofitting, if it were needed to be done, if it were under $75,000, we would not have to go through the bid process once we have our code changed to allow that.
Chairman White, through you to Dr. Aldrich, yes, that's correct. With the caveat being that if city code as it exists today requires contracts for 35,000 to be reviewed. So until code changes, that if we had a $70,000 rehabilitation quote to move forward with that work, it would still require governing body approval. So if we can get both of those dollar amount thresholds updated, then yes, you're correct. It could be a direct award without advertised bidding or council approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Barber,
Roybal.
do we-
Another
do we-
question?
Yeah, so is that by project or is that by subcontractor?
Councilman White, through you to Councilman Roybal, we would consider that on a whole project basis. So all of the, if it required, if we were gonna solicit one bid for electrical, mechanical, engineering, all of those things, we would generally consider that as one package. So that the sum of that work would generally drive how we define whether it does or does not need an advertised bid.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roybal. Next member of the public. And I'm allowing, I'm kind of trying to be fluid because I'm allowing some questions from members of council to some folks in order to try and answer many, and I mean many of the questions that we've received through a lot, as you can imagine, a lot of emails over the past week. We want to make sure that information gets out to everybody in one venue and is very consistent and hopefully answers some of the questions that we've received. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Lena Officer, citizen of Cheyenne. I did email all of you this morning. So I'm just gonna reread some of my questions I have, and they're very broad strategic questions, so we might not have answers yet. But really my concern is I've lived in Cheyenne for over 9 years. I highly encourage that the city council reconsider approving the lease contract with Meals on Wheels with the goal of creating a metro animal facility. With my experience in strategic planning, it is concerning to me that the concept of a new metro animal facility was not communicated more effectively with the residents of Cheyenne and is very confusing as well. There are many unknowns that the community has about this concept, which is causing unnecessary emotional impact to all involved. Questions that I have is one, how is this change going to create a positive impact on our community?
I don't know that I have an answer for you on that, ma'am.
Okay, and if this is a plan B that has to go into effect, what are the measurements of success for this change to our community?
Again, I don't know that any measures have been either developed or certainly not implemented.
Okay.
Fair questions.
What is the proposed annual cost and savings for switching to this facility from the animal shelter? I haven't seen hard numbers.
Neither we.
Neither we.
That's why we're here.
What are the projected rates of return on this project?
We don't know that either.
I think I'm looking at Eric and these are all
Those are great questions.
great questions and none that we have answers to.
Yeah, and like I said, broad, but I want to make sure the public knows that these are questions we need answered if this were to take effect. If you do plan on providing these medical necessities, how will you plan on separating animals who are vaccinated that come to your facility to ensure contact is not made with other animals? That's very in the weeds with the facility.
And ma'am, you have reached your 2 minutes. So we'll go around. I know you're very patient and I did see your email this morning, so we'll go around and if you still have questions, we'll get to you when we can.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Escobar.
Okay, one of the issues is council has asked the shelter to provide us with an itemized, line by line, detailed expense report.
I want to keep that, perhaps maybe we keep that type of information statement under the comments from the committee.
Okay.
But
You told us you wanted us to answer it and we
well, I mean, I allowed council members to ask some questions of TJ because we just received so many questions about the RFP aspect of this that I just felt it was a good idea to get that information out so that everybody could hear it at the same time. So, but I thank you, Mr. Escobar. We'll go to the next member of the public. Hello, Ms. Illaway.
Hi.
Chloe Elevate. I am speaking on behalf of the Cheyenne Animal Shelter and the citizens and voters of Cheyenne. I am on the Cheyenne Animal Shelter Board and also on the Cheyenne Animal Shelter Foundation. It is my recommendation that approval of this lease be delayed until negotiations between the shelter and the city are complete. I would also like to speak against the further expansion of government into the private sector. Although the shelter is a vendor to the city for animal care, it is not the same as government growing to provide this service. There will be more employees needed with expanded benefits and responsibilities that this entails, and a myriad of non-animal items that will come up. In addition, the proposed building or property will be taken out of the tax benefit or the tax base and not available to the private sector. The citizens and voters of Cheyenne and Wyoming have continuously opposed the expansion and growth of government. This is taking Cheyenne in the wrong direction. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next person. Press that button until you see the red light and then please proceed. Welcome, Joan.
Good afternoon, Chairman White, Finance Committee. My name is Joan Franklin. Thank you for the opportunity to address the proposed lease between the City of Cheyenne and Meals on Wheels facility located on South Greeley Highway. These were my concerns. On the lease, under number 4, there is no term and termination clause. There is no remedy to get out of this lease. The termination wording indicates the 60-day notice to terminate only refers to those extensions, period, not the 5-year term. This could put the city in the position to pay for the remainder of the 5-year lease. Should they close the facility after 1 year, they would be responsible for the following 4 years to the tune of $308,560. And the confusion also lies on what is the extension period. There's too many parentheses there. Under item number 5, right of refusal. This section appears to indicate the city of Cheyenne has the first right of refusal. But if the potential buyer offers more, the lender can accept the offer and the city has to offer even more. The city would only have 10 days to match that offer. Under 5A, this part of the section makes no sense. Under number 8, using taxpayer dollars to change a building that may not be suitable for the purpose needs to be considered. Under number 12, I believe this was brought up this morning. How is water and sewer paid for in the first year? Because they are not included in the utility list. Then the numbering on the document I have jumps from 14 out to 17. What happened 14, 15, and 16? I don't know what's going on there. Under 25A, pay upon demand the amount of loss and damage intended of use could indicate the cost and replacement of the concrete section should it become urine soaked in the ammonia is a health hazard. Under number 25B, what's meant by efficiency. And if the new renter does not pay the same rate, then the lessee, the city would need to pay the difference. Under number 34, Americans for Disability Act is missing its S. Thank you for this opportunity to address these concerns. As stated in the contract, I respectfully request this committee to consider these issues carefully for any unintended consequences and ask this committee not to recommend this lease to move forward in its current form. Mary has distributed a letter addressing additional unintended consequences from the retired member of Meals on Wheels in the past. I would ask you to please take that under consideration as this could have some detrimental effects. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joan, and great job. I don't know how you got all that in. That was one of the most impressive efforts I've ever seen. So thank you very much. And duly noted that the letter from Ms. Benson, retired Meals on Wheels director, has been submitted to the Finance Committee and will be referred to other members of the governing body. Thank you. Hello, next person. With ma'am, unless somebody else, there's Mr. White, and then if nobody here in person, we'll start working our way through all the people who've been patiently waiting on Zoom. Go ahead, sir.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank the members of the council here today. the open house that was at on Saturday. I got a lot of questions answered. I appreciate their forthright information on trying to make this resolution. I support the ability of the city to make their resolution to make this work at Cheyenne Animal Shelter, but I have a few questions for you. Number one, the property's in the county, so why are we signing a lease with a piece of property from the county? Number two, when that individuals go out there under the current laws adopted by the state versus the county has full jurisdiction on the construction of that building. Number two, I'd like to make sure that I've been properly stating this. My recollection is that the taxpayer voted the current animal shelter under the 6 penny tax, and I am going to do some more research on that. Number three, I respect the fact that you want to do an alternative area, but I still think we're getting the cart before the horse. In Finance Committee, just before this was talked about, the city of Cheyenne, under the direction of the Parks and Rec director, had authorized a local architect firm to give cost factors and how much it would cost to build a gymnastics center. So I would entertain that the city has all of its ducks in a row on what this would cost to do what they would think that we need to do as an alternative. But I strongly recommend, and also I have another question, which I'm sure nobody can answer. What is the county commissioners feeling on this? I guess we'll find out on Wednesday when I attend that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Just to clarify one of the points you made, to my knowledge, the animal shelter has never been on 6 penny ballot. Not to say that that couldn't happen, but I don't know.
And we are agreeing with the county on this. It can be in the county.
Great. And another clarification, sir, to one of the things that you had mentioned, the city and the county are partnering on this endeavor. We've both providing funding thus far. And so therefore, that is one of the reasons why the property could be in the county. Anyone else in person? If not, we'll proceed to Zoom. Go ahead, ma'am.
What do I do?
You do just exactly what you just said. Welcome, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Finance Committee. I just have a couple of questions. I think this kind of goes back to what Joan asked. Oh, I'm Tony Brandon. And so maybe this is for Mr. Forrester. Once this lease is signed, how do we get out of this lease? If there's an opportunity for that, when does this lease get signed going forward? What I'm trying to gather is how long does the Cheyenne Animal Shelter have for negotiations? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Thank you for your questions, Tony. Ms. Foster, did you want to provide information on that to Ms. Ledon?
Mr. Chairman, through you to the public, Stephanie Foster, Cheyenne City Attorney. This is a lease agreement for 5 years. We can get out of the lease agreement, but we must provide notice to the Meals on Wheels company. In terms of negotiation timeframe, this lease is in front of the city council on Monday. So unless this council postpones decision on that lease, it is effective Monday.
Thank you for that clarification.
Only if it passes.
Only if it passes. Correct. Well, while we wait to see if anybody in person wants to make a statement, we'll go out to Zoom real quick and then we'll come back here in person.
Laura Bowen, you should just unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. Am I unmuted?
Yes, ma'am, you are. Thank you. Yes, ma'am, you are. Thank you for being here.
So much for giving me on this. I would like to say that my one objective in participating in this finance meeting today is to simply say, do not engage in a lease. That is my wish. There's a lot of conversation going on. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of unknowns, as I think has been described here today. I don't think that the finance committee would sign a lease with all of that unknown information. I think much like many of the members in the community, I've done so much, looking at the shelters, numbers and estimating how much BTUs cost for energy. And I do not think that the city can create an environment for less money to create a metro intake center that's going to be very displeasing to the entire animal welfare advocates. But again, my objective in having a chance to communicate is to say, please don't sign this without information, because it has been said, and I have it in writing from someone, that once it's signed, it's a done deal. Please don't sign this lease today or approve or recommend this lease today. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And what was your name again?
My name is Laura Bowen. I apologize. Laura Bowen.
Thank you, Laura. And just for clarification, the Finance Committee can only recommend that either any item on our agenda be approved or not recommend that an item be approved. So that is what the Finance Committee will be taking a vote on today. We appreciate your engagement. Thank you, ma'am. We'll come back to in person, ma'am. Please give us your name if you would.
My name is Karen McNicholas.
Can you hit that button until the red light comes on, Karen? There, you got it.
Okay, thank you. My name is Karen McNicholas, and I have a lot of concerns here like everybody else has expressed, so we're not going to go over those again. But what I do want to say is I would like the board to not recommend moving forward with this lease at this time. There hasn't been enough time for public input. I mean, this is a huge decision on behalf of the city. I do wish, and I know they're ongoing right now, I don't think anything should be done until all negotiations with the Cheyenne Animal Shelter have been exhausted. I think that's the best thing that could be done. And then only at that point would you even consider leasing. Every avenue for compromise or communications or mediation or negotiation needs to be done. I'm a firm believer in mediation. I'm a firm believer in negotiation. The Cheyenne Animal Shelter is an important resource to the city of Cheyenne. As you can tell here, many people are not for another shelter, particularly one that's has the possibility of down the road costing even more. I personally do not know what it costs to retrofit the building, things like that. You've already got one thing from Meals on Wheels that they don't want to be responsible for, I guess, water and utilities, which a lot of landlords are responsible for. So I think they're already indicating that they know it's going to be a very high cost. And they want the city and the county to absorb that cost, which is going to increase any numbers that you've already worked on. I'm glad to see it's moved to a Plan B situation, but as a concerned citizen, an animal lover, I feel it's something this lease should be put on the back burner at this time and only used as Plan B if all negotiations and mediations and communications fail. And I think everybody in Cheyenne wants the negotiations to succeed. They would do almost anything they can to keep the shelter in place and running, whether it's more fundraising, different things like that. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated. Thank you for being here today. Should we go out to Zoom and then we'll come back in person? Go ahead.
Caitlin Wilson, you should not unmute yourself.
Welcome, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Caitlin Wilson. I'm a resident of Cheyenne. I did send the council a lengthy email of several questions pertaining specifically to this lease. However, I would like to gain a bit more understanding, I think, of how this particular facility was selected. And in your guys' tour of this facility, did you see any potential issues or concerns with the facility pertaining to sheltering, a large number of animals, providing proper exercise, anything of that nature?
Dr. Aldridge was on that tour on Friday. Go ahead, Dr. Aldridge.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman White. I have to say, I was actually, I was surprised, quite honestly, how accommodating it would be to the plans that, and the ideas that were proposed for that as a plan B. There is, I think, some of the concerns I'd heard about were that there wasn't an outside exercise area. There actually is a space, a green space between the building and a fence that runs along the north side of the building against the storage units. There's also a green space behind the building along a tree line that would be away from the highway for the dogs to be able to be exercised and to be able to be walked. There was a place for a truck to be able to pull in to unload animals so that they wouldn't escape, I guess is a good term, or so. I actually thought it would require a lot less retrofitting than what I had imagined. And there was sufficient heat as well as swamp coolers for cooling the building. So a much better situation than what I had anticipated.
Thank you, Dr. Aldridge. Next, anyone here in the room want to speak? We've got a ton of people on Zoom, Joan, before we come back around. So I want to make sure I get everybody. We'll go out to Zoom.
Yeah, just one more time. I don't see any hands raised.
Oh, it's been surprising. With that, anybody that hasn't had a chance to speak that's here in person, now's your chance. And I guess before I'll ask you to identify yourself, are there still people that are outside or down in the chambers?
Squeezed in here.
Okay. Glad the fire personnel left. Oh, he's in. Sorry, Chief. Sorry, Chief. Go ahead, sir. Please identify yourself.
Pat Baird, and thank you, Chairman and the Finance Committee. I just to reiterate, I had some questions on you pick up this building, just what the city cost was going to be to upgrade it and a few things, and also, is it a place you're going to stack cages of animals, or is there going to be up to some shelter requirement? I think those are questions. I know the mayor has insisted on a budget from the animal shelter. I guess would like to see a budget from the city too on just, what you're going to do and what's planned and what it's going to cost the new city employees, I would say, or city county employees. Just a lot of questions. So I guess I would just leave that out there a little bit. And thank you very much for your time.
And thank you, Mr. Baird, and thank you for emailing all of us. Much appreciated.
Jeff, just for the record, what was his name?
Pat Baird.
Thank you.
And if I'm correct, sir, B-A-I-R-D.
Thank
Okay.
Mr. Chair, do we have the square footage of the animal shelter compared to this building? For the building question. Compliance, know it.
This one's 9,500.
Eric, did you want to?
I believe that, Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Escobar, I believe they're about 13,000 square feet. This building is about 9,000 square feet.
So 4,000 square foot difference.
Correct, but you wouldn't have a store, other offers that they do offer, we would not be offering that at the center.
Correct.
And that also includes the community room they have out there, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
We will go out for further public comment. Again, I've asked for everybody who hasn't had a chance to speak yet. This is your chance.
Okay.
You press the button until the red light comes on. There you go.
Okay.
Got it.
My name is Patrick Rudd. I'm a citizen here in Cheyenne. So my question is actually just for the members of the finance committee. So kind of after hearing everything tonight, the question would be, do you feel like you have enough information to understand the financial feasibility of the project to make a recommendation that would inevitably, from my understanding, engage the city in a lease as soon as Monday? Just from an outside perspective, I'm in your position, I would want to know what the full scope of the RFP renovation budget would be. It seems like there's just a lot of missing information. So my question is, do you feel like you have enough information?
I won't pretend to speak for my colleagues. I think for myself, I think there are a lot of unanswered questions. I also think that if there was a motion to postpone, that would be the final decision on any type of postponement or delay would be done at the meeting of the full governing body next Monday night. That would be 1 week from tonight. So go ahead, Mr. Escabel.
Mr. Chair, so Friday, that's when we received the email from our treasurer that had somewhat of a budget on the other side. So as finance committee members, as you stated, we need to know exactly line by line, itemized detail, what it is we're paying for. And we did not get that to my satisfaction. Maybe that's what they're getting upstairs now. And if I weren't in this room, I'd be in that room. So.
Any follow-up questions, Mr. Rudd?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for your engagement, and you've been present at most of these discussions, so thank you. Anybody who hasn't had a chance to speak yet? Anyone who hasn't spoken that would like to? Welcome, ma'am. And are you Mrs. Baird?
I am. My first name is Sherry.
Welcome, Sherry.
I know we're talking about all these expenses you are going to incur with going to this new facility. I also wonder who's going to pay the insurance on this building? I don't know if anybody else has thought of this, but as a concerned citizen, I think you want to have insurance. Is it going to be Meals on Wheels covers that, or do you?
Stephanie, I believe you had an answer to that question.
Mr. Chairman, through you, to members of the public, Stephanie Buster, Cheyenne City Attorney. Our current insurance carrier is Warm. They will not cover the cost of this, they will not insure this building because it's not city owned. So we'll need to get an outside of policy for the building, which we've agreed to do in the lease, and we've also made that effort.
Thank you for that information. Ms.
I do
Baird?
have a question. Is there any place that the rest of us could get a copy of this lease? So we know what it's actually saying in it?
It is online.
And it's through the city website?
Yes, ma'am. If you click on Finance Committee, and then there's a prompt for other, go ahead, Jen.
If you go to the finance committee and you click on the agenda, you'll want to actually click at the top of the agenda. It says to view documents or the links to the documents. If you click on that, it does take you actually to a separate website, that area that houses all those documents. So you'll just need to click. It's kind of halfway down the page on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Baird. We appreciate you being here. Anybody else who has not spoken that would like to? With that, Joan, you've been waiting patiently to speak again, and after the way you went through that last one, I think you earned your chance to have a second chance to talk. So go ahead, Joan.
Once again, my name is Joan Franklin,
You can pull that down if that's more comfortable for you. There you go.
to address the finance committee. The letter that I provided to you was from the previous director of Meals on Wheels. I'd like to read just a couple of excerpts from that particular letter from Sharon Benson. This building was never intended to house animals. The heating and cooling equipment was last serviced in 2019, to my knowledge. The floor is not level, and installation of cool drains and water supply lines will be costly. At this time, the gutters and downspouts are damaged, and drainage issues would be a concern for the other buildings. There's no fire suppression system, carbon monoxide detectors, or possibly adequate ventilation for the proposed use. Now, I'm not going to read the last paragraph where she goes on to say, the biggest concern here is whether we're swapping one thing for another and putting the less stores name out there as connected to this type of facility. And would that have unintended consequences on their business, their funders, their donors, and their volunteers? That was her concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. If there are no. I almost had it. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. White, I'd like to address some of the concerns about the gal that just read that letter. I was a product of the building department for 32 years. That building was an S1. That does not meet the requirements for an animal shelter. The current code that the city and the county adopted requires ventilation under Chapter 4 of the 2021 Mechanical Code. It also requires an interceptor. It also requires fire suppression, et cetera, fire sprinklers. So we seem to be getting to this realm of the cart before the horse, and I agree with Mr. Esquivel. We need a line-by-line item from the people representing the government body on what it's going to cost. Now, if we need to round up some contractors, I can do that. But we need to proceed this with caution. The 5-year lease is something that I respectfully say to the city attorney that it would be really hard for us to get out of that. Number two, I'd like to also refresh the memory of a lot of us did donate money to the animal shelter, and for us to do an equally based comparable building, I don't think that can be accomplished with the current site. I would also like to ask the governing body and the council members here to maybe give us some information in addition to what's been said today on what the county commissioners, because we don't seem to be hearing any of that, but I guess that's for us to find out. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. I just saw, ma'am, before we come to you, I know, Brittany, you just probably finished with the meeting. Was there anything that you wanted to say while we're still on public comment? Or I can give you a minute to decompress and we can come back to you. How's that? Let's do that. Ma'am, go ahead.
Hi, Kendra McAllister again. So, we've already visited that. We realize that the building may not be ready to go in a manner which we feel is necessary. However, I do have a question based off of the actual animal sheltering part. Should we go with Plan B? Has the city retained any animal sheltering experts to review the plan for the new facility and the operations? And was it confirmed adequate, practical, and feasible?
I don't know that that's been done.
Thank you.
And I'm seeing Mr. Fountain shake his head no, so that would be no.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we're gonna allow for a few more and then we're going to go to get a. Okay, we'll go with Holly, is it?
Yes.
And then we'll go to the person on Zoom and then I'm going to ask for and then we'll go to Brittany. And then we'll ask for a motion from the committee. Go ahead, ma'am. Thank you for being here today.
I have to say, one thing I've learned today is that this is a lease and not a purchase. I was under the understanding that it was a purchase. So that's a lot of money to invest in something that is not a purchase. And then, my next question is, or comment is there a reason that you guys have to decide this by next Monday? I mean, I'm assuming you need time to retrofit if you were to go that way, but is there any way you can postpone that a little bit?
Anybody want to answer that? Dr. Aldrich?
I was just going to say, my comment, Chairman White, through you, would be that my understanding is that our current agreement expires on June 30th. We have to have something in place if negotiations should fail. And it's going to take some time to implement that. So if you work backwards from June 30th, and because of how our process works, Monday night would be, in order to have enough time to be able to do what we need to do, if we have to go to Plan B, Monday night would be when the lease would need to be passed by the city council.
Thank you for that explanation. Let's see, we'll go to the person on Zoom and then we'll go to Ms. Tennant.
Tiffany Healy, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, this is Tiffany Healy. I am a citizen of Cheyenne, also a veterinarian. Mr. Chairman and the Finance Committee, I would like to recommend that the Finance Committee does not recommend this lease at this point. I think the city and the shelter need more time to continue their negotiations. My concerns with the building, and I have not toured the building. I appreciate that there may be some green space outside, but there's so much more to consider in redoing a building. I have recently completely remodeled my clinic. It was a 3-year process and it was a 3,000 square foot building. You have to consider lighting, ventilation, noise control, drainage, disease control. Those things will not happen in this short period of time. When we're considering all of those issues, it is important to stay away from being to worry about infection control within the animals, but we also have to worry about infection control with people. If with this new animal sheltering or animal control facility, it will be exceptionally difficult to be able to find a veterinarian on staff. The veterinarian is the only one that is able to administer rabies vaccine in the state of Wyoming. So without that, those animals will not receive rabies before they go out. In addition, without a veterinarian on staff, you won't be able to alter the animals before they are returned back to the public. If these animals are not sterilized, the issue of animal control will continue to worsen. I know it's an emotionally charged issue, but I do think that we need to allow more time for these negotiations to happen, before we even consider Plan B. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Healy. Much appreciated. We appreciate your engagement. Ms. Tennant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brittany Tennant.
You have to hit the button and the red light has to come on. There you go.
Oh, well, in the other room, it's a green light.
It's we love making it easier for you and us. So insert sarcasm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brittany Tennant from the Cheyenne Animal Shelter. I think most of the room is aware that we stepped out of the room because of this ongoing negotiation. So I'd just like to offer the committee and the room that as part of that negotiation, the animal shelter, we have acknowledged that there needs to be something in between. No, you can't have anything at all, and you can have everything, including our general ledger and all of our receipts. And we're committed to finding that middle ground in terms of the reporting that you need to have confidence that those taxpayer dollars are being well spent in service to this particular task. So that was a big part of our conversation. What is the animal shelter willing to do in terms of reporting and financial transparency? And I'm very committed to making sure that that is not something that we have to continue questioning going forward. So that is my commitment to all of you. My ask of all of you is to please check your email because the mayor has to talk to each of you individually today in order for us to get further on this negotiation. So he's had made it clear to us that talking to the council members is the challenge for him at this point in the negotiation. So I would just offer that now that we're going to close public commentary and get out of this meeting, that maybe be the next step for you. And please and thank you.
Brittany, I want to thank you for your efforts. Again, I don't know details or specifics, but I do know that you have been actively engaged with the mayor, and we do appreciate that and appreciate your efforts. So I know that this hasn't been an easy situation. So thank you. There's no, if you would, anything we can do to make it harder. So. Hearing no further public comment, do I have a motion from the committee?
Would so move to approve the lease agreement in an amount not to exceed $76,000. Do I need to give all 5 years?
Just go
I
ahead.
don't know how you're going to do it.
Yeah, go ahead and just do, it was $76,000 annually for 3 years.
Okay, I would just move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by the committee. Is there a motion to amend?
Yeah, we have a
This-
substitute. I'm sorry. I would move to amend by substitution the lease agreement dated March 17th at 6:07 PM.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to amend by substitute. Just for clarification, the substitute does provide some clarification on payment of utilities. That was the only change from the original lease. And Stephanie, I believe the substitute is online as well. Great.
No.
It'll go on today after you guys recommend it to be online.
Perfect, thank you. So we are on the substitute. Any discussion on the substitute? Hearing none, all those in favor of the substitute amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
As no one's opposed, that substitute has been passed. We are now back on the main motion as amended. Mr. Roybal?
Well, as I sit here and I really enjoy looking at all these smiling faces. None of us want to be here. You know, we don't want to be having this discussion. You guys don't want to be having this discussion with us on that. And, you know, the community engagement has been overwhelming almost. But the reason we're here is because at one of our council meetings, they presented the contract, CAS presented the contract, 1.25 million this year. And said, take it or leave it. And then they asked 1.75 next year. And that's joint between the city and county. And then they said, if you don't want to do that, then do your own. So here we are at Plan B. You know, I would love to continue the relationship with the shelter. I have no problem with it. Since we took over the animal control, it seems to work seamlessly. I want to thank Eric and his bunch for that, because we've got officers that we haven't lost in 18 months. They're all accredited. So at this point, like I say, we're on a Plan B. And we're on a tight schedule too. If this thing we can't get this done, then we got 100 days to open a shelter. So we got to hire people, we got to retrofit, we got to bring in the latest technology, all of that. So I'm going to be a yes on this, because I hope they get the negotiations done, but just Plan B. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm gonna go to Dr. Aldridge, and the tone has been very respectful throughout this entire process thus far. I certainly hope that it will continue that way. Dr. Aldridge.
Thank you, Chairman White. So I am very concerned that we get down the road and we don't have a Plan B. Do we have lots of questions still, and were there some great questions brought up? Absolutely. There are lots of things that we don't know and that we haven't been necessarily privy to. I will tell you that the first year that I was on council, I sat in a budget hearing with the chairman of the Cheyenne Animal Shelter Board. I don't know if he was chairman at that time or not, Mr. Mincer, who was representing the board at that hearing. And he did say to us, you can expect the next 3 years, we want to get to a certain dollar amount, which is well over $1 million. And basically shook his finger at us, literally, and said, if this isn't something you're willing to pay, you can do your own. that's probably not the best posturing to go into negotiations with. I will tell you that I've been asking personally for the last 2 years for a price per animal per day. I've yet to receive that. Now, I did receive, and thanks to Brittany for sending information out to the council members and for making the information available. As a council member, I don't want to be in the animal shelter business. That's not why I ran for council. I'm sure that's not why most of my colleagues ran for council. But if negotiations fail, we have to have a plan. And that's my concern is how do we, I think we need to work at having a negotiated agreement that can work for both the animal shelter and for the city of Cheyenne. Our funds are not unlimited in the city of Cheyenne. I know that may surprise some of you, but they are not. We have a lot of responsibilities. State statute requires us to take care of things like infrastructure, trash, streets, water. It also requires us to take care of vicious animals. It doesn't require us to provide all of the benefits that our shelter currently provides. And so we need to make sure that we're being accountable with taxpayer dollars. We need to be transparent on our end. I definitely agree with that. And I think there needs to be some transparency on the shelters side. They have been very fortunate. Our community supports the Cheyenne Animal Shelter very well. I think they would agree to that as well. And I think that the foundation having over $3 million in reserves is evidence of that. If you've ever been to the Fur Ball or to any of their fundraising events, you know that they have a tremendous amount of support in our community, and that's been well earned. However, we need to come to some sort of agreement that both sides can live with. And so while this body is just a recommending body today, and this will go before the full council on Monday night, at this point, not knowing, because there are a lot of questions and we don't know where negotiations are at, I will be voting for this to move forward with a recommendation for Monday, so that we at least can have something in place for Plan B if we don't have a negotiated agreement. Again, my first choice is that we negotiate and that we do something that both sides can live with. But in that absence, we need to have some sort of a plan for July 1st.
Thank you, Dr. Aldrich. Mr. Escobar.
Mr. Chair. I have nothing to say.
I doubt that. Go ahead.
You know, I was looking at this issue. You can vote with your heart, you can vote with your head. But like I said earlier, members of finance committee. We have to have the information we asked for. And I struggled with trying to find an analogy to it. It was really easy. I just looked at my daughter and she was telling me that she wanted me to watch my grandsons. And I had something else going, saying get a babysitter. She goes, well, they want $25. So the analogy is they come home and the babysitter says it'll be $50. And because we said it was 25. She goes, well, that was to babysit. I fed them, that's another 5. I read them a story, that's another 5. I got them ready for bed, on their pajamas, there's another 5. I did the dishes after I fed them, there's another 5, so it's 50. And they say, oh, okay, well, we'll pay it this time, but next time, maybe our older brother might be old enough to watch the younger brother, so we're gonna go and keep it family, and maybe that doesn't make sense. But you have to look at alternative and keep these lines of communication open, which I really have tried to do. And we had council and coffee on a Saturday morning. It was only supposed to be for 2 hours. We stayed for 4. I did visit with the director extensively. And my feeling is we're gonna come to an agreement. I know both sides are close. But we're gonna need this to not be on consent agenda next Monday, so I'll be the note.
Just to clarify, it will not be on consent agenda because it has an amendment.
Won't be in the week.
Thank you, Mr. Escabel. Very much appreciate the comments of everybody here and on Zoom. And those of my colleagues. Again, I won't be casting a vote today because it will not be a tie. But I did want to just mention the fact there are a lot of people who've reached out to me. I understand. I'm still trying to get back to everybody that has sent me an email. But a lot of folks who have communicated with me are folks that I deeply, deeply respect. And there are many of you in our audience today whom I've known a long time, have the utmost respect for, and very much appreciate you being actively engaged on this very important issue. I love animals, contrary to what some of the folks that I don't know very well have accused me of. I think I can speak for my colleagues in that nobody's taking any of these decisions lightly. Nobody enjoys how we've got to where we are at this point. Progress has been made over the course of the past week, and I'm tremendously grateful for that. And both the mayor and Brittany should be commended for them doing everything they could to lower some temperatures and be constructive rather than destructive. I think we can all agree that it's a lot easier to tear down bridges than it is to build them. And it becomes even more difficult to rebuild a bridge after it's been torn down. But efforts are being made, and we very much appreciate that, and certainly hope that positive discussions continue over the next week, and then an agreement can be reached. With that, and appreciative of everyone here, both in present and on Zoom, who's been respectful for each other. I very much appreciate that. So with that, I will ask for a vote on item 19J, which is the lease agreement between the City of Cheyenne and Meals on Wheels as amended. All those in favor of the lease agreement, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
That item does move forward with a recommendation, and it will be heard again a week from tonight by the full governing body. Mr. Escabel is a no on that. As there are no other items on our agenda, again, thank you everyone for being here today. And this meeting is adjourned.